Hello, welcome to our webinar on monitoring your IT infrastructure with Nagios XI. My name is Michael Bellarue. I'm a technical sales engineer here at Nagios Enterprises, and today I'm going to talk to you about, well, monitoring your IT infrastructure with Nagios XI. So I guess the first question we want to answer is, what is Nagios XI? You may have heard of Nagios Core. That is our open source monitoring solution. It's been around for a hot minute. About 25 years now, and it serves as kind of the back-end engine for Nagios XI. Nagios XI adds a lot of quality of life improvements on top of Nagios Core. So with Nagios Core, you might have to remote into the Nagios Core system and edit plain text files to add or remove hosts or services from monitoring. With Nagios XI, we bend over backwards to try and keep you off the command line. Everything should be doable within the web interface. So with that part out of the way, let's talk about end-to-end infrastructure monitoring. In Nagios XI, you have a number of configuration wizards, which will basically step you through getting various devices and applications and services monitored. So when we talk about being an end-to-end monitoring solution, what we mean is we don't care if it's hardware or software or something in between, we'll monitor it for you. I always like to tell people, basically anything that Nagios XI can get its hands on, it can monitor. And it can even monitor a few things it can't get its hands on too. So here you can see we have database wizards, we have website wizards. If you need to monitor your hardware, maybe network switches, anything with SNMP baked into it, which is going to be most network devices. We can do SNMP polling. We can receive SNMP traps. The SNMP walk wizard is going to be a powerful wizard in this area. This basically does what it says on the tin. You point it at a device. It will walk the SNMP tree for that device and bring back literally any metric that the vendor makes available for that device. Pretty cool. Monitoring your servers, whether they are physical servers or virtual servers, whether they are on-prem or in the cloud. Basically, if Nagios XI can reach it, we'll monitor it. As far as how you monitor it, with an agent or without an agent, it's completely up to you. We don't try to limit you based on what you choose. We just try to provide you with as many options as possible so you can choose what's right for your environment. On the Windows side, for agentless options, we've got SNMP. We've got WMI for older versions of Windows. We have SSH and WinRM for newer versions of Windows. For agents, we have NCPA, which is the Nagios cross-platform agent. Like the name says, it's cross-platform, so this is not just Windows, but Linux, OS X, Solaris AIX, and so on. There is also an agent called NS Client. Technically speaking, NS Client is a third-party product, and we have this wizard marked as legacy, but it sounds like the developer is coming back for NS Client, so there may be some new versions coming out soon. So maybe we'll see the return of NS Client this year, which would be great. NS Client has been kind of a workhorse in the Nagios arena here. On the Linux side, we've had an agent that can monitor Linux and Unix-like servers. That would be NRPE, which is the Nagios Remote Plugin Executor. But like you see in the description here, there's no mention of Windows. And so that's where NS Client would come into play. It would give you an agent for Windows to monitor your Windows servers. And then you would be taken care of with NRPE for your Linux and Unix servers. That's one of the draws for the Nagios cross-platform agent. Being that it's cross-platform, you've got one configuration file, one agent to configure across all of your different hosts. So on the Linux side, we've got NCPA, NRPE for agents, and for agentless options, we have SSH as well as SNMP. SNMP is everywhere. You can't get away from it. In Nagios terminology, what we're looking at here is we're looking to set up what we call active service checks, and that's where Nagios XI is responsible for scheduling and executing service checks, reaching out to the remote host and bringing back a metric. There is another type of service check, which we call passive service checks, and that is when the remote host schedules and executes its own service checks, and the results are sent back to Nagios XI for processing. And that's all done over a basic API here. Passive checks are often used in environments where you have certain one-way communication, like you might have servers that are a little more sensitive than the rest of your servers, so maybe they're behind an additional firewall or something like that. Those systems can communicate out to the rest of the network, but nothing can communicate in without first being invited. And that's where passive checks would come into play. Those servers would essentially run their own service checks and report back to Nagios how they're doing. We've got our customizable dashboards with visualizations, a number of different ways to visualize your environment. These visualizations can be good for large teams in a network operations center, or if you just have a small IT team, you can create dashboards that are comfortable for your smaller team to use. So how does Nagios XI help your team? Well, one of the first things I like to point out is under the help section, under documentation, we have our API docs. Here we've got our objects reference, config reference, and system reference. The config reference lets you add, remove, modify hosts and services, groups, commands, contacts, etc. So this is how you could programmatically add, remove hosts and services from your Nagios XI installation. The system reference, you have features like scheduling downtime for your systems. This can be very useful if you are using automation to, let's say, push out updates for your systems. Part of that automation can reach out and schedule downtime for those systems, so your inbox doesn't get flooded with all kinds of notifications about systems that are just going through standard patching. The objects reference is where you can go to get a lot of good information out of Nagios XI. So as Nagios XI is monitoring everything, we understand we're collecting useful metrics about different pieces of your environment. And it may be that you want some of that data in a specialized report. So maybe you want to export this information into a third-party reporting tool. This is where you'd go to do that. The next sort of tool I'd like to talk about is in what we call the core config manager. This is where all of your host and service definitions actually live. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at an event handler. I think I have one on this Windows server here. Event handlers basically kick off a process when a host or a service goes into a bad state. I'm going to look at my my NCPA status for the service within Windows. And what I have here, the event handler restart service via WinRM. So basically, if my agent were to stop working, Nagios could reach out through this custom event handler script and try to restart the service via WinRM. And I have another event handler where you can restart services through NCPA. So if WinRM stops for some reason, it reaches through NCPA to restart the service. So this is how you can take care of a lot of that first level remediation, or if you have applications in your environment that maybe you're not able to upgrade at the moment, and you're living with certain quirks. You know that these little quirks are going to pop up every now and again. As long as you can programmatically understand what it looks like when those little quirks rear their ugly heads, you'd be able to create an event handler to deal with those quirks whenever they pop up. Let's talk a little bit about multi-tenancy. Let's take a look at our dashboards, my ironically named blank dashboard. So here in this dashboard, you can see we have a number of dashlets up here, which kind of show us the state of different hosts and services within the environment. I want to focus on this one here, this host group for production web server, company.com. What we're doing here is we're looking at, we call this mind map. This dashlet is called mind map. And we're looking at this dashlet for this particular host group. And we can see that we've got a lot of green check marks, which is good. We've got a little yellow exclamation point. So our systems are using too much memory. And this little gray wrench icon tells us that this host and its services are in a problem state, but that state has been acknowledged, so we know someone's working on it. And the reason I wanted to zero in on this for multi-tenancy is to show you that you can tell Nagios XI who can see what systems. So if we go over to our admin section here, we go to manage users, we'll pick on good old E. Ripley here. And you can see we can set the authorization level as a user or an admin. If they're an admin, they get to see and do everything. If they're a user, this little can see all hosts and services button, or checkbox here, rather, this can be a useful one to pay attention to. If it's checked, this user will be able to see everything. If it's unchecked, they're only going to see hosts and services that they are a contact for. And that can be very handy for larger organizations where you have certain people who are responsible for specific areas of the environment. Like maybe you don't want your network team to have all their dashboards cluttered up with a bunch of stuff from the server team or something like that. Alternately, if you are a managed service provider, you might have multiple customers logging into Nagios XI, and you don't want customer A looking at customer B's systems. So that's where this would come in, and that's kind of the starting point for the multi-tenancy. Now let's go back, and what we can do is we can masquerade as this user, so we'll be able to see the environment through their eyes, essentially. So E. Ripley here has dark mode enabled. See here I'm logged in as E. Ripley. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the dashboards, and we're going to go to that ironic dashboard there. And we've got that same mind map up with that same production web servers for company.com. But you can see we stop after the first 3 web servers. And this is because E. Ripley is a contact for the first 3, but not the last 3. This can be useful to know because like if you are an MSP and you accidentally push a dashboard out meant for customer A and it goes to customer B, you can rest assured that these dashlets are not going to show customer B any information, and customer B will be confused as to why you push this dashboard to them, but they won't be concerned about who gets to see their stuff. Let's get logged back in as me. Back to light mode. All right, so back in as my user. One of the other things I like to show off about Nagios, the network status map will show us our parent-child relationships as they relate to Nagios. And this circular view is a little messy, so I always like to change it to the balanced tree layout. I do vertical, apply. I just think this makes a little bit more sense. So you can see from here, Nagios goes out through this switch to monitor all these devices, through this firewall to monitor all these devices, and so on and so forth. So this can be really handy if you want to focus in on a specific branch within your network. You can do that. Or you can just leave everything maximized and use it to see where in the chain communication is broken down. Now the configuration wizards we already touched on a little bit, but I want to come back to them real quick to show you one in particular. This is the bulk host cloning and import wizard. This can be very useful because while these wizards are very friendly and kind of step you through getting devices monitored, sometimes the friendly easy buttons are not necessarily the fastest way to do things. And that's where the bulk host cloning and import wizard can come into play. So for this wizard, you might run through one or more of those configuration wizards from the previous page. And then once you have a single device monitored the way that you like it, you can come in here and clone that device over and over again for however many similar systems you have. I'll select all my service checks here. Maybe I'm adding a Windows server that doesn't actually run SQL Server, so I can uncheck these. And then down here we can have just either a list, or we can create a CSV of IP addresses and host names. So this will be WinServer2, and I'll create WinServer3. Happy. And you can expand that CSV to go out a little bit further. So if you're making good use of host groups, you can do that. If you have separate parent hosts for different systems, you can define those here. Or you can just leave it relatively basic like this. But for any entry that you put in down here, this wizard will clone the host, clone all the different service checks, and get these devices monitored as well. So this can be a good wizard if you're just getting your Nagios XI system installed and monitoring your environment for the very first time. This will help reduce the amount of time it takes to get up and monitoring with Nagios XI. But also, if you're using Nagios XI, let's say 2-3 years down the road, and you get a project dumped in your lap that says, you need to deploy 50 new switches or something like that, you can use this bulk host cloning and import wizard to get those switches monitored immediately. Just find a switch that is similar to the new ones that you'll be deploying and clone it. Okay, let's take a look at reports, which are over here. So we have some that I would call more businessy reports, the availability of your systems, executive summary, SLA. State history can be a useful report, especially for the more technical people. This is a no-nonsense version of what's been going on within the environment. So you see at this time, this host, this service went into this state, and here's what the plugin had to say about it. And so what you can do with this report in particular is you can download this as a CSV. And if you need to get this information, again, like into a third-party reporting tool or something like that, you can absolutely do that. A couple of the reports that I like to show off, the bandwidth usage report. Let's see if I can find a good one here. So here's a switch. We're monitoring all the various ports on it. That's not a good one. 58. Nope. 60. Yeah, that's got something. So this report will show you the bandwidth utilization for one of those switch ports over the last day, week, month, and year. Zoom in on a piece here to see what that utilization looks like. And you have your raw data down here at the bottom. So how much data was transferred over those devices, or over those ports rather. The capacity planning query, or report, The capacity planning report is a good report for things like disk utilization, because disks do like to fill up on us when we're not looking. Here I'll pick on my Windows server, the C drive. And I typically leave the extrapolation method at Holt-Winters. There are a few different other ones here. Holt-Winters does a pretty good job of kind of guesstimating the utilization here. So what we have here is the information we have from doing those service checks. And then over here we have the information that we're trying to see in order to stay ahead of any problems. So in this case, my disk utilization is pretty flat. But if we did have more of an upward trend here, we might see that towards the end of next week, my disk might be filling up. And that gives us a week's heads up to deal with the problem before it actually becomes a problem. One other thing I'd like to call your attention to is this little blue up arrow in the upper left corner. This is our Dashify icon. So you can just click on that and add this to a dashboard if you like to. And one of the things you can do with that is you can have different pages, like in the dashboards, you can have them emailed out as a PDF on a regular basis, daily, weekly, or monthly. So if you add a number of these different graphs to a dashboard, what you might end up with is essentially a custom report, and maybe some of those reports might be of use to your higher ups. Now, one of the things you may have seen in the dashboards is the performance graphs we have down here. This dashlet here is actually a multi-stacked performance graph. And what's happening with it is we're bringing in the CPU utilization for a specific process, in this case, SQL Server. And then we're bringing in all of the CPU utilization for every process. This can be very handy if you have specific systems that are set up to run specific software that will make sure that you are utilizing that server for what it's intended for, and no one's trying to mine Bitcoin on it or something like that. Talking a little bit about the licensing real quick. So Nagios XI is based, the license is based on the number of nodes that you're trying to monitor. So that's anything with an IP address or fully qualified domain name. And the idea behind the node-based licensing is we want you to monitor your devices in any way that you can think of. So we don't want you to have to say, well, we should be in the server pretty often, so we should know if the C drive is filling up or something like that. So we don't want you to have to cut out service checks and kind of cut your observability off at the knees in order to, afford the licensing or something like that. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us. So in this case, we have 30 total metrics that we're monitoring, probably 31 if we include the host check, which is a ping check. But this counts as one node. And you can easily upgrade or downgrade the number of nodes that you have licensed based on whatever your needs are. That is also perpetual licensing. So what you're paying for year over year is going to be maintenance and support. If you choose not to renew your licensing, your monitoring tool continues to work as expected. You just won't receive updates or support for your installation until you renew. The other very useful piece of information is that this is an on-premise installation. This is not a SaaS offering. So whether this is going to be, on a physical server in your office somewhere, or if it's out in Azure or AWS or something, and just has a site-to-site VPN back to your environment, this is on your infrastructure. The data is yours. We don't harvest your information, that sort of thing. So we try to maintain a certain amount of privacy for our customers. As far as support goes, there's online documentation and quite a bit of it. So if you're having a problem or want to know how to do something within Nagios XI, pretty much just Google Nagios XI and any issue you want to tackle. And you will either get documentation or forum posts from our community support, or both, honestly. We've got 25 years of knowledge to share. It's out there. In addition to documentation and community support, there is additional paid support. So if you buy a license, you get that first year of support and maintenance. And that is done through, typically through tickets, though there is also phone support that can be had. It might be worth noting that all of our support and all of our development is done here in St. Paul, Minnesota. And our support and dev team work hand in hand quite a bit. So if you run into an issue and we find that it's a bug in our software, you can rest assured that support is going to let dev know right away. In addition to documentation for support, I also like to call out this little, this little question mark in the upper right corner. This is a context-sensitive help menu. Basically, whatever page you're on, you'll be able to click this little question mark, and it will bring up any videos related to that page and any documentation related to that page. And you will be able to get some good information that way as well. That's about all I have for you right now. So I'm just going to end by saying, feel free to head out to Nagios.com. You'll be able to download a free trial of Nagios XI and try it out. All features are enabled, no restrictions or anything like that. So you can get a good feel for whether or not Nagios XI would be a good fit for your environment. Thanks for watching.